My eldest sister had been stranded in Jiangnan for 2 years when my fiancé, Gu Ziyun, personally brought her back. She was afflicted with a chronic illness and in critical condition, demanding that I donate blood as a remedy. I refused. So my eldest sister tricked me into drinking a sleeping potion. Gu Ziyun then slit his wrist to draw blood. It's just a drop of your blood, it won't kill you. Stop pretending, it's just a sleeping potion. But my elder sister had given me poison. In the end, I died in a mass grave, becoming a wandering spirit, watching them marry and live in luxury in Chang'an. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the first day Gu Ziyun brought my elder sister back. This lifetime, I will make them taste the suffering of a wandering spirit. I opened my eyes. I saw my fiancé carefully carrying a woman down from the carriage. He moved gently, as if she were something fragile. The woman was soft and boneless, nestled in his arms. Under her cloak, her voice was clear and delicate. Ziyun brother, I feel much better now. Please put me down. This was my eldest sister, who had been missing for a year. My father, stepmother, and the servants all rushed forward, surrounding her tightly, examining her excitedly. My stepmother wept uncontrollably. Even the usually stern old lady had tears in her eyes. Smiling with relief, Gu Ziyun held her securely, refusing to let go, and carried his older sister directly into the courtyard. As he passed by me, he instructed, Rong'er, your sister has been wandering in Jiangnan for 2 years. Weak and ill. Please take good care of her from now on. My eldest sister lifted her head from his embrace, her rosy little face shy and timid. Her eyes brimmed with tears as she smiled innocently. Sister, I'm finally back. I've missed you so much. Seeing her smile, I suddenly realized I had been reborn. In my previous life, Shin Bijuan had gone alone to the city to greet her father, who was returning from a business trip to the capital. Her father returned, but she was nowhere to be found. The Shin family searched every inch of the surrounding area, but found no trace of her. We all believed she had been killed. 2 years later, during his campaign to suppress a rebellion in the south, Gu Ziyun happened to encounter her by the Qiantang Lake. She said she had gotten lost and fallen off a cliff, where she was saved by an elderly couple from Jiangnan. However, she had been injured and lost her memory. Thus, she was taken to Jiangnan to live for 2 years until Gu Ziyun brought her back. Gu Ziyun took great care of her, and I naively thought he was just pitying her for what she had gone through. Little did I know that they had already developed feelings for each other and secretly pledged their lives to one another. Shin Bijuan was his true love, his soulmate. The doctor said she had a chronic illness that required human blood as a remedy, and it had to be mine. I refused. So Shin Bijuan drugged me unconscious, and Gu Ziyun personally cut my wrist to draw my blood. Rong'er, it's just a bowl of blood, you won't die. Blood flowed from the corner of my mouth, but he ignored it. Stop pretending. It's just a sedative to make you behave. But Shin Bijuan had given me poison. As I lay dying, she whispered triumphantly in my ear. Gu Ziyun was supposed to be my fiancé. We were childhood sweethearts, equally matched in status. How dare you take him from me? This is what you deserve, you worthless woman. In the end, they abandoned me in the dense forest to die in the rain. Rumors spread in the capital that I had eloped with my lover and been abandoned, driven to suicide by poison. My father and stepmother hated me for bringing shame upon the family, burying me hastily in a mass grave. I became a wandering spirit, watching them marry in splendor, with 10 miles of brocade carpets. My hatred boiled over, and I was reborn. I looked at Shin Bijuan's innocent smile and smiled too. Sister, I miss you so much. I miss you so much I could die. My father had her courtyard cleaned up, and soon it was bustling with people coming to inquire after her well-being. showing her great concern. Even my fiancé stayed by her side, not leaving her for a moment, until it was time to light the lamps. When he finally remembered I was still alive, Gu Ziyun found me in the pavilion, his eyes filled with pity. Ronger, Bai Jun's courtyard can't be cleaned up in a hurry. Would you mind letting her use yours? She's suffered a lot these past 2 years and has developed health issues. Keep a few maids to attend to her. After saying this, he probably felt he had overstepped, his eyes darting away as he spoke softly. Don't misunderstand. You're my fiancé. I only see her as a younger sister. I smiled sweetly at him. After Shin Bijun went missing, my stepmother had kept her courtyard. She used it to remember her, and someone cleaned it regularly. It was just missing some clothes and personal belongings. How could it be so difficult to tidy up now? Moreover, as soon as she entered the courtyard, my stepmother transferred the maids from my courtyard to work for her. How many more servants did she need? In my previous life, my first reaction would have been to fly into a rage and scream at her. But all I got was Gu Ziyun's cold stare. She's just come home, it's natural for her to be a bit spoiled. Hasn't she suffered enough in the past 2 years? As her younger sister, why are you being so stingy? Having been reborn, I decided to let them be. I suppressed the hatred in my heart and forced an innocent smile onto my face. Sister has finally come home. She's the eldest sister, the best things should definitely be given to her. Even if you hadn't said anything, I've already prepared them. Take a look. Gu Ziyun paused, then raised her eyes to look behind me. She saw the maids and servants busy moving things around. My personal maid, Chuanlian, came over and said, "Second miss, your clothes have been moved to the guest room." I smiled and nodded, then instructed her to clean the room and light the finest incense. Except for Chuanlian, no one else needed to move with me. Gu Ziyun looked surprised, his gaze falling on me. The corners of his mouth curved into a smile as he gently brushed a strand of hair from my ear and tucked it behind it. Ronger, you've become more sensible. Gu Ziyun had a face that was pleasing to the eye, and his voice was low and pleasant. He was also very skilled at using these traits to his advantage, and I had once been easily swayed by them. I raised my eyes and smiled back. But now there was only intense disgust. These hands had killed me. Not only had I voluntarily given up the courtyard, but I had also sent Shin Bijun many fine things, silk brocades, gold and silver jewelry, and rare trinkets. These are all things my father and mother gave me. I knew my elder sister would return, so I dared not use them. Now that she's back, these are all for you. My father and stepmother had neglected me for days. But now, a faint trace of guilt flashed across their faces. Since their beloved daughter had returned, I, the concubine's daughter, was no longer their only child. I was so considerate, and they were overjoyed. But Shin Bijun didn't think that way. She leaned against the soft pillow, her delicate body trembling, her small face looking pitiful as she cried. "Sister, are you blaming me for coming back and taking your things? It's all my fault. I shouldn't have come back." She sniffled softly, as if she had suffered a great injustice. In her previous life, she had always been able to use a few words to skillfully manipulate others' thoughts, with every word filled with malicious intent. Yet others remained oblivious. But I was straightforward and always spoke my mind, eventually becoming the evil, jealous stepmother everyone talked about. Hated by the elders in the family. Now I understand that with people like her, there's no point in reasoning. I lowered my eyes, and when I looked up again, they were filled with tears. I was crying even louder than she was. I said that ever since my older sister went missing, my mother had been crying every day. I felt heartbroken seeing her like that, but I dared not say anything, fearing it would make her more upset. My father and mother loved me dearly. They had simply transferred their love for her onto me. I dared not refuse the gifts they gave me and accepted them with a smile. At the time, I thought that one day, my sister would return and be delighted to see the things my father and mother had given her. Sister, those were supposed to be yours. The stepmother heard this and was so sad she started crying. She stroked my hair, looking unusually kind. Child, you have such a kind heart. My father also smiled comfortingly. Shin Bijun watched, clenching her teeth in anger, her eyes flashing with resentment. I saw all of this. Since returning, Shin Bijun had always pretended to be sickly. The doctor couldn't figure out what was wrong and could only say that she had fallen ill from a life of hardship. Gu Ziyun felt even more sorry for her and visited our house frequently every day. He feared she was lonely, so he brought her new toys one after another. Whenever I passed by her courtyard, I could hear Shin Bijun's delicate laughter and Gu Ziyun's deep chuckles. When they reached the amusing parts, they would exchange glances and smile, their eyes lingering on each other. Even a blind person could see it. Sometimes they were caught teasing each other, and Gu Ziyun's embarrassment flashed across his face before he quickly composed himself. Biju is feeling down because of her illness. I'm just trying to cheer her up. Don't read too much into it. I only see her as my younger sister. An older brother taking care of his younger sister is only natural. I nodded thoughtfully, looking completely convinced. At night, Shin Bijun came to the courtyard where I was staying, supported by her maidservant. She looked around, a hint of disdain fleeting across her face, then casually pressed her handkerchief to the corner of her eye. It's so inconvenient for you to stay here. I've been back for so many days and didn't come to see you. You won't blame me, will you? I told Ziyun that I'm fine now, but he wouldn't let me get out of bed. That's why I had to wait until he left before coming here. She giggled. Don't tell him on me. Shin Bijun looked innocent and pure, every word dripping with pride over how much my fiancé favored and pampered her. No woman could tolerate that. She curved her lips into a faint smile, waiting for me to explode. But I didn't. I acted even more foolish than her. I just stood there dumbfounded for a moment before smiling innocently. Sister, don't worry. I won't tell him. We're all hoping you'll recover soon. But as Gu Shitsi said, you shouldn't get out of bed so soon. I affectionately took her hand and escorted her to her room. In any case, the most important thing now is to take good care of yourself. Shin Bijun widened her eyes in disbelief, giving me a strange look, unable to believe that I was so naive. She smirked triumphantly, and I laughed carelessly. From then on, her guard was completely down. In private, she grew increasingly flirtatious with Gu Ziyun, and the look in his eyes was filled with unyielding tenderness. He even tried to convince me that they were just siblings. Did he think I was stupid? Chunlian was a maid I had rescued from a group of refugees. She told me everything and, seeing how I always yielded to others, had been harboring resentment for a long time, feeling sorry for me. Second miss. If you don't be more cautious, the crown prince will be taken away by the eldest miss. I looked out the window at the peach blossoms scattered by the wind and merely smiled lightly. I was afraid she wouldn't take him away. Just as we were talking, a servant from Shin Bijun's courtyard came over, saying that the eldest miss was crying bitterly and asking me to go take a look. As soon as I stepped into the courtyard, I saw Shin Bijun with her eyes lowered, looking dejected, while Gu Ziyun was speaking softly to comfort her. When she reached the saddest part, Shin Bijun let out a soft sob and threw herself into his arms, breaking Gu Ziyun's heart. I stepped back to the wall and listened carefully. She mentioned the White Deer Academy. The White Deer Academy was the most prestigious academy in the Great Liang dynasty, only accepting imperial relatives and the children of high-ranking officials. Being admitted to the White Deer Academy meant one would be looked upon with respect in the imperial circle. And the last spot was mine. Shin Bijuyuan said she envied me for being able to attend the academy. She had spent the past 2 years living a peasant's life with an elderly couple from Jiangnan, making no progress in her studies, and feared she would be mocked by the noble women of the capital in the future. Gu Ziyun saw her like this. His eyes filled with pity, and said to me, "Ronger, your older sister has already wasted 2 years. Let her take your place at the White Deer Academy. Over the past 2 years, the tutors arranged by the Shin family have taught you a great deal. But no matter how much a woman learns, her ultimate path is marriage. But your older sister is different." Shin Bijuyuan feigned surprise, lifting her head as if to speak, but stopped herself. Gu Ziyun saw this and immediately stepped forward, standing in front of her, ready to defend her. She fell silent. Gu Ziyun added, his brows furrowed with worry, "Your sister is the legitimate daughter. If others find out that Mr. Shin favors the concubine's daughter, he will face accusations. As the legitimate daughter, if Shindarin shows excessive favoritism toward the concubine's daughter, it could attract political enemies who would criticize him. Your sister would also be affected by the rumors. You don't want the Shin family to be criticized because of this, do you?" Hearing this, I sneered inwardly. He must know how much effort I had put in to get into the White Deer Academy. He dismissed it with a casual remark, forcing me to step aside. If I refused, I might be accused of jealousy toward my elder sister and disrespecting the hierarchy tomorrow. So I decided to go with the flow and see how she would handle being the first lady of talent in the capital. I smiled broadly and agreed gracefully. All right. As the legitimate daughter of the Shin family, this is only natural. Shin Bijuyuan was overjoyed, giving me a half-hearted smile with a touch of apology, then turned around and looked at Gu Ziyun with gratitude. "Brother Ziyun, thank you. If it weren't for you, Bijuyuan might never have been able to enter the White Deer Academy. Gu Ziyun, if you had been in the capital earlier, this opportunity would have been yours." How disgusting. My father felt deeply indebted to me for giving up my spot at the academy and wanted to hire another great scholar to teach me the arts. But I insisted on studying under Mr. Wu of the half-stream cottage. Mr. Wu was a top-ranked scholar in the imperial exams a few years ago, exceptionally talented, and had served in the Hanlin Academy. However, he was dismissed from his post for speaking truth to the emperor. He built a thatched hut by the eastern stream, lived in seclusion, and had an eccentric temperament. But I knew he was destined to become chancellor. Shin Bijuyuan's eyes sparkled with schadenfreude, but she spoke with feigned regret and sorrow. "It's all my fault. That day, I was merely upset that my younger sister could attend the White Deer Academy. Ziyun insisted on lecturing her on moral principles, and she shouldn't have let it get to her like that." She stepped forward, took my hand affectionately, and her eyes grew misty. "Sister, even if you can't attend the White Deer Academy, with father's connections in the bureaucracy, there are other academies or renowned scholars you could study under. Why are you so hard on yourself?" After saying that, she kept belittling Mr. Wu, saying he had no respect for the emperor, disregarded the 3 bonds and 5 constant virtues, had an eccentric personality, and wasn't a good person, which would tarnish my reputation. "If you take him as your teacher, your reputation." I felt displeased, but I only smiled faintly. "I'm just a concubine's daughter. Reputation doesn't matter. The Shin family still has you, my elder sister. You're the legitimate daughter of the family. Attending the White Deer Academy is about bringing honor to the Shin family." As I spoke, I deliberately deepened my smile and used a slightly flattering tone. "Sister, the honor of the Shin family rests on your shoulders from now on. You're so intelligent, you must become a talented scholar. The White Deer Academy bore the heavy responsibility of educating noble children. It wasn't a place for young ladies to compete over whose makeup was prettier or whose hairpin was more expensive. The young men and women from prominent families all strained every muscle to excel. Upon entering, Shin Bijun realized it was a hellish ordeal, with heavy and arduous coursework. But to speak of retreat was now impossible. Mr. Wu, however, was different. He was carefree and unconstrained. If I came, he taught; if I didn't, he slept. Shin Bijun saw me coming and going as I pleased. Her face filled with envy. She turned to look at the essay she had to write, and her face darkened with despair. The maid encouraged her. Miss Shin, Mr. Gu is the heir to the loyal and brave marquis, from a distinguished family, and a renowned scholar in the capital. How many women in the capital admire him? When Shin Bijun was about to pick up her book to review, I brought a kite to find her and persuaded her to go out and play. Sister, you could write at 3 and compose poetry at 5. You have an eidetic memory, there's no one like you in the capital. You don't need to study like those fools. The spring is so beautiful, how could you waste it? You're so intelligent, you don't need to strain yourself to be the best in the capital. Shin Bijun put down her book. When she went to the academy, she would coincidentally see me leaving the house, either dressed in silk and brocade to go shopping, or in athletic attire to play horseback kicking. Today, a batch of rouge arrived at Yinxiong Pavilion. I heard it has a unique fragrance. I must go take a look. I've already asked Mr. Wu for the day off. Mr. Wu won't check my homework, so it doesn't matter. While she was writing essays and doing her homework, I would loudly call for the maids and servants to prepare a carriage for me. Today we'd go out for a spring outing. Tomorrow we'd go to get measured for clothes. Gradually, she was influenced by me, and her mind was no longer on her studies. She would half-heartedly go through her homework. Whenever she heard that a cosmetics shop or cloth store in the city had new arrivals, or that there was something fun to do, she had to try it out. Seeing the maid about to speak up, Shin Bijun's face was already filled with annoyance. I acted swiftly, slapping the maid across the face and scolding her. You have such a wicked heart. The lessons at Bailu Academy are so demanding that sometimes we don't finish writing our essays until midnight. My sister is frail, yet you encourage her to neglect her health and study so recklessly. Everyone knows that my sister is naturally intelligent. Those other young ladies in the inner quarters don't even have a tenth of her intelligence. How can they compare? She's already suffered for 2 years. How dare you, a lowly servant, treat her this way? After saying this, I pretended to be heartbroken and teared up. Miss, please spare me. I didn't mean it that way. The maid knelt on the ground, trembling with fear. Shin Bijun's expression darkened, and she glared at her with a fierce gaze, growing even more convinced that the servant was taking advantage of her master's kindness. Shin Bijun couldn't contain her anger and sold the servant off. From then on, no one dared try to persuade her to endure hardship anymore. They all flattered her and pampered her, fearing for their lives. I also flattered her, praising her to the skies. In the eyes of outsiders, I would get into the carriage every day to eat, drink, and play. But halfway there, I would turn back to the half-stream cottage. And at night, when it was quiet, I would stay up late reading by lamplight. Only Shin Bijun completely forgot about the White Deer Academy, often using illness as an excuse to skip class. Her father and stepmother believed her and turned a blind eye. There were occasional literary gatherings in the capital, known as poetry gatherings. This month, the eldest princess's family was hosting one. Both Shin Bijun and I were invited. Everyone expected Shin Bijun, who had neglected her studies, to fail to compose a good poem and make a fool of herself. She merely smiled gracefully, tilted her chin slightly, and composed a poem in 7 steps under the watchful eyes of everyone present. One line. Love cannot be sent. Only hoping for the swallows to return to the tower. Was particularly exquisite. The audience erupted in applause, praising her endlessly and looking at her with newfound respect. What a beautiful poem! What a beautiful poem! She stole the show and became the center of attention at the poetry gathering. Shin Bijun smiled and whispered, "Everyone, please forgive me." Chunlian whispered to me, "Second miss. Wasn't that your poem?" I remained calm, picked up my teacup, and blew on it. "What nonsense are you talking about?" "That was written by my sister. It's her poem." Chunlian didn't understand and looked confused. Shin Bijun's reputation as a talented woman spread quickly. After that, more of her works began to circulate, including poems, songs, and articles, all of which were masterpieces. Everyone knew that the eldest daughter of the Minister of the Imperial Secretariat was an extraordinary talent. The elders in our family were overjoyed, and Gu Ziyun also felt honored by association. She was the center of attention, while I remained obscure. Those who praised her inevitably criticized me. Rumors spread that Shin Bijun was a chosen one, truly deserving of her status as the eldest daughter of the Shin family. In contrast, I, as a concubine's daughter, had no notable qualities and could only serve as a backdrop to my elder sister. Miss Shin is a talented woman, and Gu Ziyun is a talented man. They look so well matched when they stand together. These words sounded pleasant to Shin Bijun's ears. But there was more to come. What good is being a talented woman? Gu Ziyun's fiancé is her good-for-nothing younger sister, the son of the loyal and brave marquis. Marrying a concubine's daughter from the Shin family, even if the legitimate sister is talented. What's the point? Unless she marries a prince, she'll be overshadowed by her younger sister for the rest of her life. So, it's all fate. The last sentence was spoken with such force that it struck Shin Bijun's heart like a hammer. She unconsciously clenched the handkerchief in her hand so tightly that it almost tore. Her eyes filled with resentment. And so, she fell ill again. When I went to her courtyard, I saw her weakly leaning against Gu Ziyun's embrace. She was softly sobbing, her shoulders trembling, looking exceptionally pitiful. Gu Ziyun's eyes were filled with tenderness as he held her tightly. He then slowly lowered his head and gently kissed her lips. "Juner." Shin Bijun was comforted and murmured, "Ziyun brother." Deep within the wooden leaves, the sunlight filtered through, illuminating Shin Bijun's flushed, intoxicated face. Gu Ziyun closed his eyes and kissed her with focus. Not noticing Shin Bijun quietly shifting her gaze to me, her eyes filled with a triumphant smile. She finally stopped pretending. After Gu Ziyun left, Shin Bijun shed her composed and elegant facade. Her innocent expression vanished, and she smirked triumphantly at me. "Shin Rong, you saw it, didn't you? Ziyun only loves me." She tapped her swollen lips and gave a shy smile. "He still can't forget me. If I hadn't been away for the past 2 years, the marriage contract wouldn't have fallen on you. Ziyun knows this very well, which is why he's never had any feelings for you. His heart has always been with me." I nodded. I knew it, but I didn't care. I wouldn't give it up so easily. I blinked innocently and asked, "So, sister, are you going to be a concubine?" Shin Bijun's face turned dark instantly. She gritted her teeth and said, "You just wait and see," then strode away. My engagement to Gu Ziyun was arranged by the emperor himself. Breaking it isn't that simple. Chunlian said my words were very satisfying. At that moment, Shin Bijun's face alternated between pale and red. It was quite a sight. But it lacked a bit of boldness. "Second miss. You should have called her shameless and jumped on her to scratch her face. She's lusting after her own sister's husband. She doesn't even care about her face anymore. She doesn't deserve to live." I smiled and tapped her forehead. Stop talking nonsense. Help me with something. What? Go to Jiangnan. By the time of the Mid-Autumn Festival, the Empress Dowager hosted a chrysanthemum viewing banquet. My stepmother brought me and Shinbijun to the palace. Since Shinbijun had spoken her mind to me, she no longer pretended around me, even coming to my room privately to mock me. Only in public would she put on that innocent, kind-hearted smile again. As we passed a lotus pond, Shinbijun suddenly leaned in, seeming affectionate, but whispered a chilling sentence in my ear. Sister, who said I can't do it? I was confused and turned to look, but before I could react, she screamed and fell straight into the pond, still clutching a piece of my sleeve. It looked as though I had pushed her in. Sister, I'm sorry. It all happened in an instant. Before I could react, an agile figure darted out from behind me and plunged into the water. Shouts erupted on the shore as everyone scrambled into a frenzy. Prince Gu! Miss Shin! Someone's fallen into the water. I watched coldly as Gu Ziyun quickly pulled her out of the water. When she emerged from the water, Shinbijun's clothes clung to her body. Gu Ziyun held her tightly, ordering the maids to bring a cloak to cover her completely, ensuring no glimpse of her skin was exposed. But her skin was intentionally exposed for Gu Ziyun to see. Shinbijun huddled in his arms, shivering from the cold. Gu Ziyun's face was filled with pity. As he passed by me, his eyes were filled with hatred, and he scolded me by name. Shinrong, you're so cruel. What did she do wrong that you had to harm her like this? What did I do wrong? Gu Ziyun didn't even listen to my explanation. He had already decided that I was the one who harmed Shinbijun. The imperial garden was crowded with people. If I had really intended to harm her, why would I be so foolish as to choose the palace? Especially in broad daylight? Unfortunately, Gu Ziyun, who was so decisive and perceptive on the battlefield, had only eyes for his beloved, and his intelligence seemed to have been devoured by a dog. Shinbijun really knew how to manipulate men. She had some skill. Seeing this, I knew exactly what Shinbijun had in mind. Sure enough, not long after returning home, Shinbijun attempted suicide by hanging herself. The maids discovered her in time and saved her. But there was a bruise on her neck that was shocking to behold. Her stepmother, upon seeing this, wept uncontrollably. Juner, why would you do such a thing? Mother, I don't want to live anymore. The mother and daughter clung to each other, weeping bitterly. Shinbijun's tears flowed freely as she explained that she had been seen by everyone when she jumped into the water. And when she emerged, her clothes were disheveled, ruining her reputation. She feared no one would marry her now, and she didn't want to bring shame upon the Shin family. So she had no choice but to die. Juner. Soon after, Gu Ziyun rushed to the scene and declared loudly. In the Golden Hall, Gu Ziyun knelt before the emperor and begged him to revoke the imperial decree of marriage between him and Shinbijun, and requested that Shinbijun be given to him in marriage. Shinrong is malicious and tried to kill her elder sister. This is against the laws of heaven and earth. Such a person cannot become the future young lady of the Marquis family. Juner and I have been childhood sweethearts, deeply in love. I am willing to trade my military merits for a marriage contract. I beg the emperor to grant this wish. He insisted that he was the one who ruined Shinbijun's reputation and should take responsibility for her. However, according to the Gu family's rules, they could not take a concubine, so the position of his legitimate wife could only be given to Shinbijun. When the imperial edict annulling the engagement was delivered to the Shin family, I had already been beaten to a pulp by my legitimate mother in the ancestral hall. No matter how I explained, she refused to believe me. Then came the imperial edict arranging the marriage. She smiled broadly, saying good 3 times. Overjoyed. My Juner deserves someone like Gu Shitzi. He truly deserves to be your son-in-law, responsible and loyal. She praised him. As for you, my stepmother glanced at me with disdain, finding me unlucky. You dared to plot against your elder sister in public, bringing shame upon the Shin family. You're nothing but a disaster. Chunlian returned from Jiangnan and saw the bloodstains on my buttocks and back. She hurriedly helped me back to the room, her voice choked with tears. Miss, does it hurt? It did hurt, but I gritted my teeth and endured it, only asking her if she had gained anything from her trip to Jiangnan. She nodded. Yes. That's good. Then the beating I endured wasn't in vain. One day, I'll make her pay for it. After falling into the imperial garden, Shin Bijun spent her days lying in bed, looking listless and dejected. The doctor came to examine her, and the conclusion was the same: she had an underlying illness, and the fall into the water had exacerbated it, putting her life in danger. Finally, the doctor said her illness was tricky, but he had a folk remedy that required human blood as an ingredient. Use mine. Gu Ziyun didn't hesitate and volunteered. Shin Bijun's eyes brimmed with tears of gratitude. How could I bear to? Ziyun, don't harm yourself for me. Your body and skin are gifts from your parents. He was immediately stopped by the doctor, who explained that as a man, his young energy was too strong and would clash with Shin Bijun's qi and blood. The blood used for the remedy must be from someone born in the year of the dragon at midnight, when yin energy is at its peak, and preferably from a close relative or a woman of high status. He wrote down several birth charts that met the requirements. One of them was mine. Gu Ziyun said, "It must be fate." He found me and spoke with a matter-of-fact tone, demanding that I cut my wrist and donate blood. It's only 2 ounces of blood a day, you won't die. She's your legitimate sister, you're her closest relative. You don't want anything to happen to her. Do you? No. I do. My face darkened. I refuse. He paced over, softening his voice, looking like a gentleman from a distant land. His eyes focused and gentle. Ronger, I misunderstood you before. I apologize. The arranged marriage between you and your sister was out of necessity. If we didn't do this, your sister might have perished. If you refuse, I fear others will gossip about you. I raised my eyes, staring at his face filled with deep affection, feeling sick to my stomach. He actually believed I was infatuated with him and would comply with his absurd demands. How dare he? I furrowed my brows, feigning surprise and reluctance, and asked, Prince, who told you that was my birth chart? It's off by a day and an hour. Upon hearing this, Gu Ziyun's eyes widened in disbelief. He immediately frowned and accused me of being heartless, willing to watch my older sister die without helping, and even lying to do so. Whether I'm lying or not, you can ask the old lady yourself. I was confident. Back then, my mother went to the temple to burn incense before giving birth, but a sudden flood prevented her from returning to the mountain. She gave birth to me in the temple, and I didn't return to the Shin mansion for half a month. The only person who knew my birth date was the midwife who delivered me. The first thing I did after being reborn was to find her to change my birth chart. She had already written to the old lady, explaining that she had been trapped in the mountain temple and lost track of time. So she had mistaken the date. Now that she remembered, she came to correct it. This matter was simply something the old lady hadn't told the younger generation. The new birth chart not only avoided the time of excessive yin energy but also had abundant yang energy, which was perfectly incompatible with Shin Bijun. I'm sorry, sister. I can't help you. Shin Bijun looked pitiful on the surface, but she was grinding her teeth in anger. Our eyes met in the air, and we had already engaged in a silent battle several times. Only Gu Ziyun was oblivious. Looking heartbroken, I sneered inwardly. Get used to this feeling of heartache. There will be plenty more for him to feel later. Although I can't help my sister. There are so many people in the capital. With a generous reward, there must be brave souls willing to step forward. I have already posted notices. Anyone born on the same day as Shin Bijun, who is willing to donate blood, will receive a generous reward from the Shin and Gu families. Prince, what do you think of this plan? Gu Ziyun's eyes lit up. Not long after, the emperor visited the thatched cottage 3 times and appointed Mr. Wu to a high position. He became chancellor, and in his joy, he specially organized a poetry gathering. My father brought our entire family to attend. My wounds hadn't healed yet, and my face was pale and bloodless, making me look even more pitiful. I wore all my suffering on my face, and everyone who saw me cast pitying glances my way. The master had already heard about my situation and, seeing my pitiful state, had been giving my father and the others a sour look ever since he entered the door. Didn't you say your eldest daughter was on the brink of death? But I see her face is rosy, she doesn't look sick. It's my student who looks like he's about to die. I heard they want her to bleed herself to save someone. What kind of quack doctor said that? Does he have shit or incense ash in his brain? My father looked embarrassed. Mr. Wu was a man of integrity, always speaking his mind. No wonder the emperor wanted to strangle him. But I liked him. What was supposed to be a poetry gathering hadn't even started yet, and it had already turned into Mr. Wu's ranting session. He quoted classical texts, saying that talk of ghosts and demons was heretical nonsense that shook the foundations of the state, and that cutting flesh and drawing blood were harmful witchcraft. Scholars should discern right from wrong and follow proper methods to treat illnesses. Exchanging lives for lives was nothing but the behavior of beasts and scum. These words struck Gu Ziyun where it hurt. His expression grew stern. Sir, you speak too harshly. We are not disregarding human life, we are simply offering a generous reward, each taking what they need. Mr. Wu laughed mockingly. Am I talking about money? I am talking about witchcraft. Our dynasty has banned witchcraft and curses. How many heads do you have? Does your military merit give you immunity? Gu Ziyun was displeased. Juner is the legitimate daughter of Minister Shin. Whoever can donate blood to save her life would be honored. How can you call it witchcraft? Shin Bijun gave a weak, pitiful smile, her eyes reddening. If such a person truly exists, the Shin family would be eternally grateful. This humble maiden vows to eat only vegetarian food for the rest of her life. When the conversation went nowhere, Mr. Wu didn't want to talk to them anymore. He swept his sleeves and stood up, his lips still moving as if he were muttering curses. I looked closely and recognized the words, dog and bitch. At that moment, a figure in bright yellow robes arrived, accompanied by a breeze. The princess, surrounded by a crowd of palace maids and eunuchs, walked gracefully toward them. After everyone had paid their respects, Mr. Wu invited her to take a seat. But she was in no hurry. The princess's beautiful eyes scanned the crowd, finally settling on Shin Bijun. You are the Shin family's eldest daughter, renowned for your talent? She examined her closely, a hint of amusement flashing in her eyes. You truly are as radiant as the sun, as beautiful as a flower. Shin Bijun smiled gracefully, about to speak, when the princess's expression suddenly changed. She raised her hand and slapped Shin Bijun across the face. A loud, crisp smack echoed through the room. The princess scolded. How dare you? You dare to ask this princess to cut your flesh and offer your blood. The hall fell silent, and the room was deathly quiet. Mr. Wu was stunned, then clapped excitedly. Well done. Shin Bijun was caught off guard, lost her balance, and fell heavily to the ground. She covered her burning cheek with one hand, completely dazed. And you? After striking Shin Bijun, The princess turned her furious gaze toward Gu Ziyun. Although the prince consort and you have differing political views, he acts with integrity and has never spoken ill of you behind your back. You, on the other hand, have allied yourself with a woman to curse this princess to death. The princess mocked. Gu Ziyun, you truly are a gentleman with nothing to hide. Everyone suddenly understood the much-talked-about birthday celebration in the capital, where a hefty sum was offered for blood, was actually the princess's. As soon as she finished speaking, the entire hall erupted in chaos, with people whispering to one another. The princess's words made everything seem to make sense. The eldest princess's husband was also a general who led troops into battle. Unlike Gu Ziyun, the prince consort had a radical style. He would never negotiate if he could fight, and he would never surrender if he could suppress by force. He accused Gu Ziyun of being indecisive and showing mercy to women. Not long ago, the two had argued fiercely in court over the Jiangnan rebellion, with one advocating suppression and the other advocating conciliation. They were political rivals, a fact known to all. To publicly display the princess's birth chart and spend a fortune on blood was an audacious move. Shin Bijiyun was instantly panicked. Shin Bijiyun's face was pale, tears glistening in her eyes, looking innocent and helpless as she said, "Your Highness, this servant has been wandering in Jiangnan for 2 years and suffers from a serious illness, which was diagnosed by a doctor. It is absolutely true. As for the bloodletting ritual, it was the doctor's unconventional remedy." And this servant had no knowledge of the princess's birth date. She sobbed softly. "Therefore, if I have offended the princess, it is this servant's fault." However, this servant in Ziyun absolutely did not intend to curse the princess. "No?" the princess retorted. "What kind of illness requires a specific person to bleed you? I'd like to see for myself." When the imperial physician appeared, Shin Bijiyun panicked. Gu Ziyun thought she was frightened and comforted her gently. "Don't be afraid. Dr. Yu has served the emperor for years and is the best physician in the Imperial Medical Academy. He might have a better treatment method." After speaking, he stepped forward to speak for his fiancé. "Princess, my fiancé has been unjustly punished by you. I will report this to the emperor and seek justice for her and me." But the next moment, he was humiliated. After examining her, the imperial physician said in puzzlement, "Miss Shin, why do the symptoms you described not match your pulse at all? They are even contradictory. You are clearly in perfect health." Everyone watched the spectacle unfold, and once again, the crowd erupted in chaos, all accusing Shin Bijiyun and Gu Ziyun of conspiring to harm the princess and the prince consort. Their intentions deserving of execution. Why is Miss Shin pretending to be sick? Using human blood as medicine is truly diabolical. She even wants the princess's blood. With her father being an official, she thinks she's something special. Does Prince Gu really not know? Using human blood in medicine is a fake method. I could tell it was fake at first glance. Yet he believed it? Gu Ziyun was also shocked, staring blankly and asking, "It's fake. Brother Ziyun, I don't know what's going on either." Shin Bijiyun, desperate, shifted all the blame onto the doctor who had treated her, claiming that the doctor must have been instructed by someone to harm the princess, and that she had been used. The prince consort had many enemies in the court, so this explanation did hold some weight. As Shin Bijiyun spoke, she secretly gave a nod to the maid beside her. The maid nodded slightly and then quietly moved toward the door without making a sound. She intended to kill the doctor to eliminate any witnesses. As the maid reached the door, the doctor who had treated Shin Bijiyun suddenly appeared. Shin Bijiyun's face turned pale instantly. The doctor asked in confusion, "Miss Shin, wasn't it you who felt unwell and sent someone to fetch me?" This was, of course, something I had arranged in advance. I stood quietly to the side, watching them play out their little game with cold indifference. There was more to come. Facing the princess's entourage, the doctor didn't need to be tortured. He trembled and knelt on the ground, saying that everything was done at Shin Bijuyun's behest. And he was just a hired hand. Princess, spare my life. I know nothing. I did everything as Shin Miss instructed. Even the birth chart was given to me by one of her maids. I never intended to harm the princess. Having said that, he pointed at the maid and declared firmly, "It was her. It was her. She must have cursed the princess." Upon hearing this, Shin Bijuyun's eyes flashed with a gleam of cunning. She suddenly slapped the maid beside her and feigned heartbreak, saying, "Tanner, I have always treated you well. Why would you do this to me? Who sent you here?" The force of the slap was so fierce that Tanner collided with the table, instantly splitting her forehead open, blood flowing freely, and she fainted on the spot. The crowd gasped in shock. The eldest princess's expression grew stern as she said in a cold tone, "Miss Shin, are you trying to kill someone to cover up the crime?" With that strike, Shin Bijuyun realized how foolish she had been. Unless she could kill someone with a single blow, there were plenty of ways to make them talk. The imperial physician was present, and after a few silver needles, Tanner regained consciousness. She knelt on the ground and cried. "It was the eldest miss who ordered me to steal the second miss's birth chart. She wanted to harm the second miss. I didn't know that the birth chart was wrong, and it turned out to be the same as the princess's. I didn't mean to harm the princess." As soon as she finished speaking, she fainted again. At that moment, I feigned shock. My eyes filled with sorrow, and stumbled forward, my voice trembling. "Sister, what did I do wrong? Why are you trying to kill me?" Gu Ziyun stared at her in shock. His eyes filled with a strange look, and asked, "Why did you deceive us all and try to harm Ronger?" The name Ronger rang harshly in my ears. Shin Bijuyun, Ziyun brother. I was afraid. I was afraid you wouldn't pay attention to me. We were childhood sweethearts, and our ancestors had even arranged our marriage. Just because I was away for 2 years, you arranged a marriage with my younger sister. Do you know how much it hurt me when I found out?" Shin Bijuyun's eyes were filled with tears, and she cried like a child, every word filled with her love for Gu Ziyun. She paused for a moment, then innocently said, "I was just joking with her. I didn't really want her blood. She's fine, isn't she?" Her few words made the stern expression on Gu Ziyun's face fade completely. She turned to me and pouted. "Sister, I was just joking. You wouldn't be so petty as to hold it against me, would you?" For a moment, I was at a loss for words. Chunlian had already been infuriated by her absurdity and stepped forward with her hands on her hips, ready to argue. At that moment, "Mr. Wu suddenly exclaimed, No, I know what's going on." Everyone turned to look at him. Shin Bijuyun plagiarized my students' poetry and prose. Could it be that she's afraid of being exposed? So she wants to kill the witness? Shin Bijuyun's face turned pale again. Everyone perked up their ears upon hearing this. Shin Bijuyun was a student at the White Deer Academy. If this talented woman had plagiarized her work, it wouldn't just affect her, it would tarnish the reputation of the White Deer Academy and the Shin family's prestige. The capital was never short of gossip to pass the time. But it lacked something truly sensational. Mr. Wu stroked his white beard and spoke slowly. "No wonder I've been hearing students talking about Shinrong's poetry and prose lately. I never imagined that Shinrong would go to the bookstore to sell her writings behind my back, and that the buyer was Miss Shin herself." There was a bookstore in the south of the city called the Spring and Autumn Bookstore, which secretly took commissions for buying and selling writings. Those who pretend to be cultured but lack literary talent can post requests at the bookstore, and impoverished scholars will sell their writings. The buyer pays up front, and both parties keep the transaction confidential. This is the unwritten rule of the trade. Since Shin Bijun started selling her poetry and prose at the bookstore, I've been buying them from the owner at a high price. All her orders are handled by me, so most of Shin Bijun's works are actually written by me. Before selling them, I always had Mr. Wu review them for guidance. Mr. Wu didn't play by the rules, regardless of whether they were industry norms or not. After scolding Shin Bijun for seeking fame and fortune, he turned to me. Buying and selling articles is a disgrace to literature. The integrity of a scholar is not something that can be compared to gold or silver, and you've gotten yourself into trouble because of this. You're truly. He was disappointed in me. I kept my head down and said nothing. Chunlian stepped forward to explain. Sir, please don't blame the second young miss. She thought the eldest young miss was seriously ill, so she took her own savings to buy medicine and tonics for her. She also asked the maids to find famous doctors. The second young miss doesn't understand these things and was deceived out of a lot of money, but she dared not tell the master and mistress. That's why she came up with this idea to make money. Who knew? She glanced at Shin Bijun. Who knew the eldest miss's illness was fake? And the one who bought the articles was her too. The truth was revealed, and everyone sighed in disbelief. So that's how she earned the reputation of a talented woman. She's brought shame upon the White Deer Academy. Goodness. We actually have such a classmate. This Miss Shin is truly. First she stole her younger sister's position at the academy. Then she stole someone else's fiancé. And now she wants to kill them. What kind of heinous crime has Miss Shin committed? Have you heard? The incident in the Imperial Garden where someone fell into the water? It's said that a eunuch saw it. She jumped in herself. The crowd whispered among themselves, all pointing fingers at Shin Bijun. Shin Bijun's expression grew increasingly panicked. She looked around, shaking her head frantically, and finally turned to Gu Ziyun, looking helpless and pitiful. Gu Ziyun only gave her a cold, icy glance. Ziyun brother. Weakness and tears had always been her weapons. But at this moment, Gu Ziyun hesitated. After that day, Shin Bijun's reputation was ruined. But that wasn't enough. In my previous life, I lost my life. Back home, Shin Bijun smashed every vase in the house to vent her anger. The servants knelt on the ground, not daring to make a sound. After that day, she was no longer the talented beauty of the capital but a laughingstock. How could she not hate it? And she believed I was the one responsible. After venting her anger, she came to my courtyard, her face twisted in fury. Are you feeling particularly smug now? Did you do this on purpose? Did you orchestrate all of this? I replied slowly. Sister, if all you want is Gu Ziyun, just say the word, and I'll give him to you. From childhood to adulthood, is there anything I've ever refused to give you? Why must you insist on my death? Shin Bijun replied arrogantly. I don't need your generosity. She didn't want others' charity. Didn't want others to say she had stolen someone else's love, leaving a stain on her reputation. The marriage decree that Gu Ziyun had begged for was her victory. Shin Bijun wasn't someone who would sit idly by and wait for her fate. In front of her father and stepmother, she wept and cried out in despair. Mother! She pretended to give up her spot at the academy. It was all a scheme to harm me. She's afraid my reputation will overshadow hers. So she deliberately pushed me into this mess. That doctor and that lowly maid must have been bribed by her to frame me and ruin my reputation. She spoke with such eloquence, twisting the truth with her words. Kneeling before her parents with tear-filled eyes, she accused me of wrongdoing. My father and stepmother had always favored her. And the more they listened, the more they believed her, thinking I was the one with ulterior motives and maliciously framing my elder sister. My stepmother, filled with pity, said harshly, she's just like her biological mother, Not worth a thing. My father shook his head repeatedly. His voice filled with disappointment. What a disgrace to our family. What a disgrace. As for Gu Ziyun, though he was disappointed in her, his love remained. All Shin Bijun had to do was shed a few tears in front of him and speak softly to stir up trouble. And Gu Ziyun was powerless to resist. He firmly believed in his own judgment. Shin Rong, don't think that by using these tricks, I'll change my mind. This lifetime, I only love Juner. In the past, I respected you as her sister and treated you kindly. But from now on, I won't let you hurt her anymore. I was drinking tea in the courtyard when Gu Ziyun suddenly appeared before me. His eyes sharp and furious, scolding me harshly. He looked at Shin Bijun with a smile. His eyes filled with love, and I couldn't help but laugh. But soon, he couldn't laugh anymore. As the wedding approached, she and Gu Ziyun went out shopping. The handsome man and the beautiful woman were deeply in love, drawing the attention of passers-by. Suddenly, a man in ragged clothes rushed over, grabbed Shin Bijun's leg, and exclaimed joyfully, "Juner, I've finally found you. You said you were going shopping. Why didn't you come back? You returned to the capital. Why didn't you tell me? Come home with me. My mother and I have missed you so much." Shin Bijun recognized his voice and her eyes widened in horror. "Who are you? I don't know you. Get away from me. Get away." The man pushed aside his disheveled hair, revealing a delicate, scholarly face. "Juner, it's me, Wen Bin, your husband. I've been waiting for you in Qiantang for so long." Shin Bijun screamed hysterically, as if she had been terribly frightened, shaking her head frantically. "Go away. I don't know you. You must have mistaken me for someone else." The man grew impatient. "What mistake? You're Shin Bijun, my wife Wen Bin's wife. You have a blue birthmark on your arm, it's you." His gaze flickered toward Gu Ziyun beside him, and he shuddered violently, suddenly realizing, I know. You've fallen for someone else. Haven't you? You slut. I knew you were lying to me. It was you who wanted to leave me back then. My family wasn't wealthy, but we provided you with good food and clothing. You spent all our money and then abandoned me. It was you who insisted on leaving. And it was you who abandoned me." He turned to Gu Ziyun. "Do you want her? Fine. Give me 1,000 taels of silver, and I'll write a divorce decree." Shin Bijun broke down and begged, "Ziyun brother, don't believe him. I don't know him. He's just a madman." The joy on Gu Ziyun's face vanished the moment Wen Bin accurately pointed out the birthmark on her hand. The woman he had been obsessed with was actually someone else's wife. Shin Bijun hadn't gone missing and ended up in Jiangnan. She had eloped with a man. Back then, I was still young and didn't know what Shin Bijun was doing when she sneaked out of the mansion. I only knew that she always came back in a good mood. Until one day, while I was flying a kite outside, I accidentally saw a scholar lingering outside the wall, reluctant to leave. That scholar was Wen Bin. When he saw me, he affectionately stroked my head and gave me a piece of candy. "You must be Shin Rong, right? Don't tell anyone you saw me. Understand?" What a good child. At the time, my father was working at the Ministry of Justice and often traveled on official business. Shin Bijun had never gone out alone to greet him. But on that occasion, she claimed to be missing her father and went out to meet him, only to disappear afterward. Later, I realized she must have gone with that scholar. Shin Bijun went to great lengths to kill me, fearing the truth would come out. She had calculated everything, but she didn't anticipate that I would send someone to Jiangnan to find Wen Bin, give him money, and point him in the right direction. The news spread quickly, and when the legitimate mother heard about it, she fainted on the spot. My father was so enraged that he slapped Shin Bijun across the face and dragged Wen Bin to the authorities, accusing him of abduction. The elders of the Gu family rushed to submit petitions, annulling the engagement between Gu Ziyun and Shin Bijun. This time, no matter how heart-wrenchingly Shin Bijun cried or how devastated she was, Gu Ziyun remained unmoved. He came before me, his face filled with guilt, his eyes gentle. Rong'er, it was my fault before. I made a mistake in loving her and caused you to suffer. She deceived me into marriage first, and I was blinded by her. Fortunately, no irreparable harm was done, although you are only a concubine's daughter. I do not care about your background. Rong'er, please give me the chance to make it up to you. He did not care about my background, but his words kept reminding me that I was only a concubine's daughter, and marrying him was already a great honor for me. How ridiculous. He still thought I was deeply in love with him. I am well-educated and talented, and I am already a female clerk in the princess's palace. I don't care about him. I sneered. You are the heir to the marquis, and I am the illegitimate daughter of the Shin family. I am not good enough for you. I paused. I'm afraid there will be a second Shin Bijun who will cut my wrists. The Shin family's reputation was ruined. My father was mocked by his colleagues at court, and he was furious, vowing to send Shin Bijun to the White Horse Temple to become a nun. Upon hearing this news, Shin Bijun, who had been weeping and blaming heaven and earth every day, fell silent. She locked herself in the courtyard, repeatedly saying she was wrong. She spoke to herself, her soul shattered. Before leaving, she sent someone to invite me and Gu Ziyun to the 7-mile pavilion. Shin Bijun was dressed in plain white clothes, her eyes filled with tears, her expression calm and serene, with a look of shame on her face. She spoke slowly. Sister, brother Gu Ziyun, I was wrong in the past. I do not beg for your forgiveness. I have decided to become a nun, and from now on, I will pray for the Shin and Gu families before the ancient Buddha and the lamp. Gu Ziyun could not bear it and sighed. To acknowledge one's mistakes and make amends is the greatest virtue. The White Horse Temple is 100 miles away. Take care of yourself. Shin Bijun recited a Buddhist mantra, poured several cups of tea, and said tearfully, Bijun offers this tea in place of wine, wishing the two of you a lifetime of happiness. Gu Ziyun replied, I accept your kind words. How amusing. Did I agree to his marriage proposal? I remained silent, watching Shin Bijun solemnly raise her head and drink the tea in one gulp. After finishing, she looked at me. Sister, are you still unwilling to forgive me? I took a half-hearted sip. Then she gave a strange smile. Moments later, everything changed in an instant. Gu Ziyun's face turned pale. He grimaced in pain, pressed his hand to his chest, knelt on one knee, and suddenly coughed up a mouthful of thick black blood. Poison. Shin Bijun froze, backing away in terror. Looking at me. Why is this happening? I saw it. It was you who drank it. Why aren't you affected? I spat out the tea in my mouth, unsure if Gu Ziyun's cup had been poisoned. She had intended to poison me, but as she raised the cup to drink, I had swiftly swapped our cups. Shin Bijun realized she had committed a terrible mistake, broke down screaming, and fled. Gu Ziyun fell to the ground, begging me to save him. The Gu family's carriage was nearby, and it had an antidote for poison. He told me to go get it. Rong'er, hurry, hurry. I smiled, knelt down, and looked at him as if he were already dead. This scene was so similar to my previous life. They had lured me to the 7-mile pavilion, tricked me into drinking poison, and when I begged him to save me, he watched me die without lifting a finger. I became a lonely ghost in the graveyard. In my midnight dreams, did he ever feel a shred of pity or regret? I stood by coldly, watching Gu Ziyun. His eyes were filled with despair and resentment. Finally, he closed his eyes. Moments later, I ran out of the pavilion. Help! Shin Bijuan killed Prince Gu. Murder! Servants from nearby carriages rushed over upon hearing the news and burst into tears. Gu Ziyun was dead. The news that the sole heir of the Gu family had been poisoned by Shin Bijuan spread quickly back to the capital. His stepmother fainted repeatedly. When she came to, she cried and begged her father to send people secretly to find her and hide her away. I said softly, "Mother, it's no use. Your sister hated Gu Ziyun for abandoning her, for being unfaithful and heartless. She sought revenge and poisoned him with her own hands. The Gu family has already demanded her life in exchange." The Gu family mobilized all their resources, even summoning the patrol troops. Within half a day, they captured her near the mass grave. Driven by anger and hatred, they beat her to death with clubs on the spot. What of the Shin family's legitimate daughter? Killing to avenge a life is only natural. My father deemed her a disgrace to the Shin family and buried her hastily in the mass grave. This life, she is doomed to be a wandering spirit.